Power to the truth. This is Margo. This is Friday, December 21st, 2018. And tonight I'm just going to do earthquakes, and I've got a couple of articles to bring to you regarding what I'm going to show you on the earthquake map tonight. So just as a follow-up from yesterday, we had the 7.4 up here off the coast of Russia, and it was downgraded to a 7.3, and since then they've had quite a few large aftershocks. We're looking at the one day all magnitudes and for around the world, and we're seeing 313 earthquakes worldwide so far right now. So here's the area where that 7.3 or 7.4 or 0.3 happened yesterday, and it happened right up here. And since then, since last night, 24 hours ago, there have been 10 aftershocks, and they've been quite large. And here's the list over here of what they've been. They've been 4.5, 4.4, 5.0, 5.4, 5.6, 4.8, 4.9, 4.4, 4.3, and 4.5. So that's been in the last 24 hours. So that's still moving over there. This is off the coast of Kamchatka, Russia. And I forgot to show Hawaii last night, so let's go there first. This is the main island of Hawaii, and this is where the volcanoes are still going off, and there are 9 earthquakes showing on this map, and they're pretty small, so but there's still activity. Like here's a 2.5, there's a 2.7, 2.4, 2.4, 1.7, 1.8, and so forth. So there's that. So not huge earthquake activity, but there's still volcanic activity happening there. Then we'll zoom back out, and we're going to look at the United States last, because that's where most of the activity is that I want to show. Then we have the South Pacific. We've had a 4.6 in the Philippines, and then this is all the Indonesia area here. Here was 5.1 Indonesia. That happened at 2:43 this morning, my time, Pacific time. Then on Papua New Guinea, they had 4.7, or 4.9, 5.2, and 5.0. So those were getting into the larger range. Here on Vanuatu, there was a 5.0. This is New Caledonia, 4.8, and Fiji, 4.6. So that's what's going on in the South Pacific, right? And on the then up here, remember we had those 2 earthquakes that were northeast of Tajikistan. Here's another one. This is a 4.0, 4 kilometers north of Shunnan, Tajikistan. Then here's here's a 3.0 at Ahar, Iran, and here's a 4.3 southeast of Beykonik, Turkey. So we can see that most of these earthquakes are on the red lines. Then down here on the South Atlantic, no, it's not the South Atlantic Ridge. This is the South Sandwich Islands. There was a 5.1 north-north, 129 kilometers north-northeast of Bristol Island. And you see that's on the red line down near Antarctica. Here's Antarctica. Here is the tip of the western peninsula of the Antarctic, and here's the south end of South America. Then down in South America we've had 4.3 in Chile, 4.4 in Chile, 4.3 in Chile, and 4.9 in Colombia, and this is all on this red line going down here. Then in the Dominican Republic, they've had a little swarm. They've had 7 earthquakes over here, ranging from ranging from 2.9 to 1.4. So those are not big enough to cause damage, but it's still showing movement, and we can see that that's on that red line. And now let's go to the United States. Let's go to Alaska first. And again, the Aleutian Islands, there's still some earthquake activity going on there. This was a 3.0 at Tanaga Volcano, Alaska. Here's a minus 0.5, so it was a little microquake. And then all of these up here in Alaska. So let's zoom in and see what Alaska is doing. So this is showing 98 earthquakes up here in the last 24 hours. So typically Alaska gets between 50 and 100, and so they're still swarming down by Anchorage, but we can see that we've got some up in the north. These are all pretty small. That's a 2.0 at Koktovik, Alaska, 2.4, 1.5, 1.9, and so forth. Here's a 3.1 at Unalakleet, 2.6, 2.9, and so forth. And then coming down the middle part of the state, we're seeing they're coming on down here, and here's the cluster north of Anchorage where that large 7.0 earthquake happened about 3 weeks ago, and they had 62 in this area today, including these little outlying earthquakes. And they're small, but it's still showing movement, 2.3 and so forth. So there's that. Now I want to come on down to the United States, and there's been one down here in the Cascadian Basin, in the sea, in the ocean here, 2.9, 240 kilometers west of Ferndale. So that's on the red line for the Cascadia subduction zone there. Then there's a little one up here, 1.3 in Harbor, Washington, and some of the others have fallen off the map. Now let's look up here in the Yellowstone region. We're seeing a few coming down through this Yellowstone region, so we want to keep an eye on these. There's a 2.4 in Lincoln, Montana, 1.6 Butte, Montana, 1.5 Manhattan, Montana, 1.5 Whitehall, Montana, 1.0 Wilson, Wyoming, and then over here a 2.5 at Arco, Idaho. So we want to keep an eye on those little ones because they're important. Then in Utah, they had a 2.0 at Monroe, Utah. And then Nevada is earthquake country. We've had a few little ones scattered around throughout the state. Then there was one up here in the middle of Pyramid Lake. If we zoom in, you can see this is north of Reno. That's 30 miles out there to Pyramid Lake, and that's on an Indian reservation, Pyramid Lake Indian Reservation, and the Paiute Indians live out there. And I've gone camping out there quite a bit, and it's called Pyramid Lake because it's got these structures that jut up out of the water that are very ancient, and they look like pyramids. And there's one main one that juts up out of the water over on the east side, and it looks just like a pyramid, and that's why it's called Pyramid Lake. And then at the north end they had pinnacles, which are these tall structures jutting up. It's really a mystical place, and I've done a lot of camping and hiking out there, and it's a real special place for me. And so that there's also a power point out there too. So it's a special place. Then there was a 2.3 at Honey Lake, California. Then remember the swarm of earthquakes I showed you in Carson City last night? That's calmed down. We're only seeing 3 on the map today down in that same place. Here's Prison Hill, and so they're small, like 1.2, 1.1, and 0.2. So that's kind of calmed down, and we haven't had any in Reno or Sparks today, and none on Mount Rose or anything like that. Nothing around Lake Tahoe, so that's kind of calmed down. Now over here in California, I'm going to save that little thing for last. That's my little treasure I'm going to share with you that no one's reported on yet. That little diamond shape right there. I'm saving that for last. Then there were 2 more tiny earthquakes up here in the California mountains. And then we've got this swarm going on over here northwest of Sacramento at the geysers, and there's been 24 over there, and so that's an active area, and they're small, again. But like I said, the small ones, the largest one was a 3.2. It was that blue one showing up. And they're not very deep, 3.4 kilometers and so forth. So there's that. Then we have just lone earthquakes here and there. Then over here, as we're coming down into California, we've got a little cluster over here through Long Valley. And if you watch Dutch Sense, he says that there's a caldera over here. This is Mammoth Lakes, and so this is old volcanoes over here. So these are representing magma movement. Here's Mono Lake, and that's a old volcanic region. We've got a couple of earthquakes over there and up here. So this is a seismically active area. This is called volcanic tableland, and we see a little volcano right there of 0.4. And now I like Dutch Sense, but he goes way too fast for me, and he gets off on all different tangents. So I just like to look at the earthquakes myself, and so I decided I would record when I'm actually looking at the earthquakes, so I have a record of them. Then I'll put them up, and if you'd like to watch my earthquake report, you're certainly welcome to. And I will be doing other reports too. I'm not going to limit to earthquakes, but since it seems like everything is kind of ramping up, I thought I'd include this in my repertoire. Now right here, we're looking at San Diego down here. LA is up here. Remember we saw that swarm down, was it down here? Yeah, down here. On the map now, we're seeing 58 earthquakes on this whole map, and so we're still seeing this swarm happen here at the Cahuilla Indian Reservation. It looks like 30 earthquakes today. I think they had like 60 yesterday. So it's calmed down a little bit. Those are all small. And some more lone earthquakes here and there. And Salton Sea is there. And then a 2.0 at Borrego Springs and so forth. Now, I want to show you some other places in the United States have had earthquakes that normally don't have earthquakes. We had today, there was a 2.7 in Pecos, Texas. There was a 2.7 near Fort Worth, which is near Dallas, Texas. Here's a 2.4 near Perry, Oklahoma. And yeah, these could be from fracking. I don't really look into all the different reasons why they happen. I just like to show them, and because it doesn't matter if it's from fracking or not. In my mind, it's showing movement, and if it's big enough to register on the Richter scale, it's important, and it's showing movement and shaking of the earth. Here we had a 1.7 7 kilometers southwest of New Madrid, Missouri. Now this is important because this is in the New Madrid seismic zone. And I'm going to show you something in a second here. At a 2.2 near Englewood, Tennessee. Then up here in the northeast, there was a 2.2 near Templeton, Massachusetts, and they never have earthquakes. I mean, rarely do they have earthquakes. Now I'm going to show you something very interesting. When we go to our settings, you can turn on U.S. hazard, and what it does, it shows the hazardous zones in the U.S. And so it lights up. The blue is where it's more calm, and then where it goes into yellow and orange and red, those are the hazard zones. This is the New Madrid area. This whole area is the New Madrid seismic zone. And so they're worried about that going. And we see, so that we did have an earthquake there. Here's another active area where we had that one in Tennessee. And then up here where we saw the pattern of earthquakes coming down through Yellowstone, that's in a hazard zone. And then the whole west coast of the United States is orange and red, and that's considered a hazard zone. This red line is the San Andreas Fault that goes all along the Pacific coast there. And then there's another hazard zone on the eastern side of the Sierra Nevadas and down through the Sierra Nevadas. So I found this today, this overlay today, and so it's just in the United States, but I found it interesting that these are all in, pretty much all in the hazard zones. So now I'll turn that off. So that's an overview of what we had going on worldwide today. Okay, nothing down in Mexico. Alright, and now for your little treat. Right here, you see this little diamond area? I'm going to zoom into that. Here's Chico, California. Paradise was, okay, here's Chico, here's Paradise where they had the big fire, and this is Oroville. And this diamond is at the Oroville Dam. And there was a chemical explosion that registered 2.5 magnitude on the Richter scale that happened at 3:58 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon today at the Oroville Dam. So I'm kind of flipping out over this, because if any of you have been following the disaster that happened at the Oroville Dam back in February of 2017, the dam, the spillway broke, and I'm going to show you some pictures and stuff, but it broke and it was a huge mess, and they finally got it all rebuilt at the end of October this year. And now this is the spillway, this is the dam, and this is the it feeds into the Feather River that goes down, and it provides water for a lot of communities, I think including Sacramento. You can follow it down. And when they had the breakage at the spillway, they had to evacuate a whole bunch of people, and they've been working non-stop ever since then to fix that main spillway. And now there was this chemical explosion right at the base of the dam today. So, as far as I know, no one has reported on this yet. But, so you're hearing it first here. Now let's zoom in and look at this in detail, and we're going to spend the rest of our time tonight looking at this. 2.5 magnitude chemical explosion 3 kilometers northwest of Oroville, East California. Happened at 23:58 UTC time. It was actually around 4 o'clock Pacific time. Minus 0.2 kilometers depth. So it was up, what'd I do? It was up on the hill of where it goes into the dam. So if you keep zooming in, here's where the earthquake happened. And it's all labeled here. You can see the dam. Here's the road. This is the reservoir of water that the dam holds the water back on. And these dams were built, I don't know, I can't remember. I did a bunch of research on this about a year and a half ago. There was a whole system of dams that were built in California to control the water supply to all the different areas of California, and they thought it was a good idea at the time. And this Oroville Dam is the tallest dam in the United States. And this is the main spillway coming down here that broke. And when we zoom in a little more, here are the roads that they've got going to where they were fixing the dam and everything. And this is the displacement pool where when the water is let out, when they want to lower the water in the dam, it comes down through the main spillway. They open the gates here. It comes down the main spillway and goes into this displacement pool, and then it goes down the Feather River. So that's how it's supposed to work. And they had real problems when the spillway broke, and it had snowed so much that when the snow was melting, it was the reservoir was getting full, and they had to keep letting water out, and then it kept breaking more and more and more. And apparently it's believed that the original spillway, there were cracks in it, or it wasn't built right to begin with, and so there were problems all the way around. And so now we had this explosion right down here in this hill going down to the displacement pool right at the base of the dam. So I don't know what's going to happen with this, if it's going to cause any problems with the dam or with the construction of the spillway. We're going to have to keep an eye on this, and I'm very interested in this because this is only like 90 miles from where I live. But it's kind of crazy. So let's look at, this is about the Oroville Spillway construction. This was all about when they rebuilt it, and here are all the notes from the Department of Water Resources. And they completed the construction or reconstructing of the main spillway by November 1st, and to be prepared for the upcoming winter. The newly constructed spillway is now built to its original design capacity of 270,000 cubic feet per second. So you can more than 700 construction workers from Butte County and other parts of Northern California worked day and night to make incredible progress during the 2018 construction season. So they got it all done. It took them a year and a half, but they got it done. And now they had this chemical explosion. Here are some pictures, and this is what it looked like from February of 2017 when it broke. This is February 15th, and they were still having to let the water out, and it broke here, and the more the water came down, the more the concrete came up, and the whole foundation went away. So, and you can see the side of the hill here. And then this is where they started construction. This was from November of 2017. So they worked all summer long, and they got it partially done by November. And see, here are the roads, like what you saw on USGS. Let's go on over. So that was from November 2017, and here it is now with it all rebuilt. This is from October 29th. And they filled in, this is the emergency spillway over here, where it can go over this little wall and come down, and they put a bunch of concrete on the rocky area there for it to go down. But this is the main spillway, and it's really long, and it took them a lot of work, as you can see. And now, the best that I can figure, that explosion happened somewhere down here, where my magnifying glass is. Now this is where they open the gates to let the water come through, and the dam, the big dam part, is over here. It's off the picture here, but then the hill comes down, and then it goes down into that displacement pool, and then the dam is over there. So I'm thinking this explosion happened somewhere over here. So here we're back at USGS, and this is where the explosion happened. So we're going to be looking more at that when it comes up. And I have another interesting article about the Oroville Dam and earthquakes that I found. This is from Seismological Society of America, and this was published a couple of days ago, December 18th, 2018. And it says Oroville Dam quakes in February related to spillway discharge. A closer look at small earthquakes that took place at the Oroville Dam in California's Sierra Nevada foothills in February 2017, near the time when the dam spillway failed, suggests that the seismic activity was related to reservoir discharge that opened and closed fractures in the rock below the spillway. So what they're saying is that the spillway had cracks in it, and that when the water came down and the water came through the cracks, then it caused it opened and closed the fractures in the rock below the spillway. So there were fractures in the rock below the spillway, and it caused earthquakes to happen. It seems likely that fluid leaking through cracks in the main spillway altered the pressure on the underlying rock fractures, causing them to slowly open and then slam shut over and over again, according to the report in the Bulletin of the Seismological Society of America. Here's a picture of it when it broke. Yeah, that looks like a major nightmare. Researchers at the U.S. Geological Survey were able to detect more than 19,000 very small seismic events that occurred over the past 25 years, apparently as a result of these fractures opening and closing underneath the spillway. The seismic events did not cause the failure of the dam's main spillway in mid-February 2017, said USGS seismologist Robert Schumal, who led the research team. These seismic events were not directly associated with the spillway failure, although experts determined that water leaking through the spillway cracks led to the failure. We think this leaking water also caused the seismic events. These seismic events occurred for decades prior to failure and continued to occur after the failure itself. So they took a closer look at seismic signals located near the dam after two small earthquakes of magnitude 0.8 and 1 occurred on February 14, 2017. After unusually heavy rainfall in the area and record-breaking water levels in the Oroville Reservoir, parts of the Oroville Dam main spillway crumbled between February 7th and 12th, prompting the evacuation of nearly 188,000 people in the Oroville County area. Using a technique called template matching to search for events similar to the February 17th magnitude 1.0 earthquake, the researchers detected more than 19,000 tiny seismic events at the dam that occurred between May 1993 and April 2018. So this is what I'm saying. These small ones are important because they eat away, and eventually something's going to happen. The February 2017 earthquakes were intriguing to Schumal and his colleagues in light of a 1975 magnitude 5.7 earthquake sequence that was previously linked to the filling of the Oroville Reservoir. We wanted to know if these recent earthquakes could also be related to rapid changes in reservoir level and determine if these events might be precursors to larger magnitude earthquakes. The day after the magnitude 0.8 and 1.0 earthquakes, which were too small to be felt by humans, the researchers completed a preliminary analysis, and very quickly we saw that there were tons of these kinds of earthquakes located close to the spillway and they did not look like natural events. Earthquakes as small as the Oroville events are often not detected by usual seismic monitoring, so the researchers turned to a technique called template matching to search for other seismic signals from the reservoir area. With this approach, we treat the waveform from a successfully identified earthquake like a fingerprint. We take that fingerprint and scan through decades of data looking for signals that look similar, just with smaller amplitude. The technique works well with earthquake swarms, a lot of earthquakes that occur over a short time period. Swarms can occur naturally near volcanoes or within tectonic subduction zones, but they are also common in cases of seismicity induced by human activity. We were seeing thousands of small events which abruptly turned on and turned off, so we knew there was some kind of trigger that was causing these events, but it was a puzzle at that point. If it was induced, we thought it would be related to the reservoir itself, because there are many examples of reservoirs inducing earthquakes. However, when the scientists compared the seismic data to the water levels in the reservoir, there was only a weak correlation between the tiny earthquakes and high water levels. Instead, data on Oroville spillway usage from the California Department of Water Resources turned out to fit the seismic data perfectly. The small earthquakes occurred during times of outflow from the reservoir over the spillway, and they were not related to the processes responsible for the 1975 earthquake sequence. Spillway discharge leaking through cracks in the spillway likely created rapid changes in fluid pressure along fractures in the weathered rock underlying the spillway. The researchers concluded this process could have caused the fractures to repeatedly open and close and generate the seismic swarms. Will the seismic events return when they resume usage of the spillway, which has since been repaired, or are they gone for good? Depending on the amount of rainfall we get, we might be finding this out in the next year or two, he said. So, I will leave links below to this information. So there you have it. They just fixed the spillway, and then they made a chemical explosion of some kind there to cause a 2.5 magnitude earthquake right at the base of the Oroville Dam. Not good. I've got a bad feeling about this. I've got a very bad feeling. So, there you have it. I love you guys. Time is short. I recommend everyone get your spiritual house in order. No one knows the time, the day, or the hour. Until next time, go in peace. God bless you, and good night.